All right, you guys, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I am super excited about this episode today. We're talking about how to make your life sustainable. And I have a really special guest with me today. Her name is Megan German. And we were talking about this the other day, and I was like, you've got to come on the podcast and share this with my listeners, because I think ultimately what people want is to live a life that feels more sustainable and doable long-term instead of this go, 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 go kind of mentality. And I think so often what people think is, I'm just in a really busy period of my life, and when things slow down, then I'll be able to work on my health or my relationships with other people, and not really realizing that they're always in a really, really, really busy period of their life, and things don't slow down unless it's intentional. So I brought Megan on today to talk about how to do that. So Megan, before we get into the great content today of what you're going to share, I want you to tell everybody a little bit about you, just to give people some context.
Sure. Okay. Well, first of all, I'm excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
Of course.
So I am a mom of 5, ages 13 to 2. So it's a party. There's always something going on. I homeschool my kids. I do it with a community, so it's not all on me. So they're around all the time, which is great. I'm also a self-help junkie. I have just always wanted and have always been working on improving myself. So that's for sure what brought me to you. We live on a piece of land with 5 acres. We have chickens and an orchard and a greenhouse and cats and dog, and we're trying to be more self-reliant, I guess. I don't know. We like being out in nature. And yeah, anything else you want to know?
No, that sounds great.
Okay.
That sounds great. So let's talk about this idea of sustainability. And before we talk about how to become sustainable, just talk to me a little bit about this, how you kind of created this aha moment of, I want this in my life. Where were you at before we started working together? And then what has been kind of your transformational experience?
Yeah, well, I think in the last couple of years, I've started to become more and more aware of my pattern of like, go, 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 and then crash, and go, 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 and then crash. And I had what I labeled a mommy meltdown a couple of years ago, where I was like, this is not okay anymore. I don't want to live like this anymore. And my pattern was also, I would go, 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 crash, and then get mad at my husband and say to him things like, if you would just do more, if you could take responsibility of this, or if you could take something off of my plate, then I wouldn't melt down. And that doesn't really land well. And that doesn't lend itself to good marriage relationships. So something needed to shift, because he would pick some stuff up here and there, but inevitably I would go, 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 and then crash again.
Yeah.
So it became more clear to me that it wasn't so much about what he was or wasn't doing. There were patterns I had to change so that burnout, mommy meltdown, whatever you want to call it, I didn't want to do that anymore.
Yeah. And this is exactly what my experience was as well. I remember back when Merrill was deployed and for his first deployment, and I just kept telling myself everything's going to get better as soon as he gets home.
Yeah.
And of course he got home and things didn't get better, because the same kind of thing. I had created these patterns of burnout and anger and shame because I wasn't managing my own emotions and solving for this burnout. Because I think so often we feel like we can't, like it's not available to us because we have so many things going on in our lives, and that just isn't true. So do you want to speak a little bit to that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I even worked with a coach before, and I was explaining this pattern to her, and she was like, well, maybe you just shouldn't do so much. And I was like, what? What? That's like not an option. I don't know what you're talking about. And it didn't really land then. And I don't think it occurred to me until I was working through your Burnout Breakthrough program, where you taught that idea that priority didn't become plural until the 1940s.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden it hit me like, oh yeah, priorities is actually kind of like an oxymoron. Like it really is okay to just have one priority. And it's okay. Like we still need to do all the things. We still need to, feed our families and do laundry but we only have so much bandwidth.
Mm-hmm.
And it has helped bring so much clarity to just have one priority. And of course, my brain wants to be like, oh, but you should work on this and you should work on that. And it's so easy to just be like, no, I'm actually just working on this one thing right now. That can wait. It's okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Yeah, you totally did.
Okay.
So let's talk about this idea of sustainability and what that means to you. And then I want to talk to you about what your priority is or what your priorities are and how you whittle down and some of the strategies that you use to help you make your life sustainable.
Yeah, well, I've lived my life with a lot of anxiety, I think, and just kind of that feeling, I don't know if it's anxiety, but just that feeling of like, oh, got to get to the next thing, got to get to the next thing, got to move on, And I don't like that. I don't like that, how that feels in my body. And that's not how I want to live.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned enough to know that there is another way. I just have to learn another way and practice another way so that new way then becomes my default mode, because that was for sure my default mode before. So I think for me, it always came back to like what time I woke up in the morning or my morning routine. It was like, if I could just start the day right, and everything else would go smoothly. That was one of my thoughts. And if there was more I wanted to get done in a day, then my brain was like, well, then you just need to wake up earlier. And one of my turning points was realizing I don't want to wake up any earlier. I don't and I just listened to your morning podcast, which is kind of funny, but I realized, number one, I'm not doing it. So clearly, and I really don't want to. So for me, I decided I'm not waking up before 6:00. I don't really want to. I'm not going to. And I want to be in bed, lights out by 10. Those are my hours. Those are my waking hours. So whatever I need to get done in a day needs to get done in those hours. And if it doesn't get done, then I'll try again tomorrow. Then it must not have been that important. That's kind of the mentality I've started to adopt that I think has helped create more of that sustainability of like, I'm willing to wake up at this time. I've got this many hours, so I'm going to use them as best I can. And what I get done is what I get done.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that so much, because it is a much more peaceful way of living your life. And when I feel like when we have this peace in our lives, we're just able to experience so much more joy in what it is that we're doing. We're not trying to hustle and cram things in and get it all done and then beating ourselves up when we don't. We're just saying like, hey, if I get it done, yay for me. If I don't, yay for me. It's like kind of the same kind of thing. You just let go of that. Production equals being an amazing mom. I think that is something that we buy into culturally that's just not serving us very well. And I love what you said about adapting more of the sustainable lifestyle, because I do remember one of the very first coaches that I hired, she was talking about her morning. I didn't ask her what time she woke up, but she was just sharing she wakes up at 6. And I remember thinking to myself, like, that is so weak. Really, 6 in the morning, that's so late, and now like, I don't set an alarm. I usually wake up. Now that the sun's coming up earlier, it's around 6, but in the wintertime, it might be 6:15 or 6:30. It's not like I'm like, boom, out of bed, my feet at the floor, running, and it's crazy, right from the beginning of my day. And it feels so much more pleasurable to me to live in my life, it's just
totally. Well, absolutely. Yeah. So I totally used to think in order to accept waking up at 6, I had that same thought of like, well, really productive people wake up at 5 something. Really, go-getters wake up at 5 something. I had this thought that I had to wake up earlier if I wanted to be in that category or something. And letting that go was so liberating. It was so liberating. And just to know that, no, this is what I'm going to do. And I am still a go-getter. And I still am getting the things done that I want to. I'm just doing it in a much more peaceful way.
Yeah.
It feels more matter of fact. I've been able to take the emotion out of it, and it's way more enjoyable.
Yeah.
For sure.
I have people, when people find out I'm a productivity coach for women, they're like, oh, I could never do what you do because I don't like getting up early. I'm like, who said anything about getting up early?
Yeah.
I didn't tell you what time to wake up. I mean, you just, you got to do what works for your life and the best times of day that you're functioning and awake and all of that stuff. So I'm so grateful that you brought that up, because I think that's so true. I think that's a misconception that a lot of people have about being productive.
Totally. Well, and I don't get up at 6. One of the other big like breakthroughs and shifts for me was, I try to plan out my day, but like spending time with my husband, taking time to build a relationship with him, I would always leave that for the end of the day, but I had nothing left at the end of the day to give him. And it finally just occurred to me, like, how about I just roll over and snuggle with him for half an hour, and then I'll get up, because I don't like to jump out of bed. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of beat myself up for not being able to do that for years. And I finally just accepted, you know what? It's okay. I'm just going to roll over and snuggle and chat and whatever. And then I'll start with my routine. And that has been such a game changer too, to like give myself that permission to just relax and ease into the day. And I think kind of sets that peaceful tone.
Yeah,
too.
For sure.
It's been awesome.
I love those words of easing into your day.
Yeah.
I think that's a really great way to start. So,
because that's what I want to do. So why not do it? Right.
Yeah. I'm so grateful that you brought up those points and mentioned that. It is such a beautiful way to think about your time and starting your day. I wanted to touch a little bit about how you've shifted into thinking about priorities versus priority. What are some of the things that you've let go of? What are some of the things that you are doing now to kind of live your life with fewer priorities?
Yeah, well, I had to take some time to write down all the kind of extras, like the extra projects, and some of my extra projects were or are like remodeling our house. We bought a 25-year-old home a year ago, and I want to fix all of it. So that's a project.
Yeah.
Another project that's been on my list for a really long time is our family photo album. That's important to me. It's something I've worked on here and there, but I seem to always find myself behind. And so there's always work to be done there. Another project I have is writing a curriculum for our homeschool community about thought work, about our bodies and how they connect. I do have some coach training of my own, so it's something I'm super passionate about, and tools I wish I had when I was younger. And so I felt really led and guided to creating that curriculum. So those were kind of like my big 3 that I was always trying to juggle. I didn't really feel like I was giving any one of them the amount of time that they deserved.
Yeah. And this is on top of your family and your faith and the other things that are also priorities for you in your life.
Yeah, and I pay the bills for my husband's office, and I serve in a leadership position in my church, and like I said before, homeschool my kids. Like, there's a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
But these are just kind of like the extras that, things that fill me up that are important to me. Mm-hmm. So I just had to take a look at those and realize, okay, which one do I really want to work on? And I decided to make my homeschool curriculum a priority. I feel like I'm pretty close to being done with that. So I thought, okay, that's the easiest one to, let's kind of the Dave Ramsey approach of, like pick the smallest amount of debt, go after that. So that's been my priority. The interesting thing is I've still done quite a bit to fix up my house in the meantime, because I've cleared up all that headspace of thinking about it. Mm-hmm. So I have set aside a time to work on my curriculum, and showing up for that is really important. And once I show up for that, then it's like not nagging me. It's not in the back of my mind anymore. So that frees up space to do more stuff. Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally does. That conversation creates so much drag in our minds. Like, you
Totally.
should be doing these other things. You should get to
Mm-hmm.
this, what about this? And it just like, it goes on and on and on. And it just is draining for us. And so it
Yeah.
is interesting when you do have more structure in your life. It's amazing how much more white space that you actually have, because you plan your day in advance, you eliminate the drama, and you just settle into what the schedule is.
Totally. I mean, this is maybe a little bit off topic, but I just recently had you start helping me with my food, and I've been writing down like what I'm going to eat the night before, and I am so surprised at how much headspace that has cleared up for me. I had pretty healthy habits before. I just was wanting to tweak a few little things, but like just making those decisions ahead of time, I'm like, oh, I do not need to think about this as much as I used to.
Yes, I'm so grateful that you brought that up, because people are just like, really, you write down your food every day, or you have your clients write down your food every day? I'm like, actually, it makes your life so much easier. But I can say that till I'm blue in the face. And like, well, that just works for you. I'm like, no, really,
No,
really,
it works.
yeah,
It really does. It really does.
yeah.
And for sure, there's been some days where I'm like, oh, I said I was going to eat that. Do I really want to eat that?
Yeah.
Like there's still some chit chat, but just not nearly as much as there was before.
Totally.
Yeah.
Right. Because you have a plan. You have something to base your decisions off of, for sure. Okay. So tell me a little bit about feeling more energized now that your life is sustainable, as far as like keeping your commitments to yourself. Tell me a little bit about that. Because I think sometimes when people are listening to me talk about making a schedule and then living off of that plan for the day, it just feels like it just bogs them down. Like they don't have any spontaneity in their life. They don't have any room for fun or anything like that. But tell me a little bit about what your experience has been in creating a plan and keeping your word to yourself with that.
Yeah, I didn't realize how much a burden it was to myself to not keep commitments to myself. Things like exercising in the morning and getting up and doing my scripture study. And those are things that I have always committed to myself, but haven't always followed through on. Or sitting time to work on my homeschool curriculum. Like I would say, okay, I'll do that at 1:30 today. But then 1:30 would roll around and, oh, the dishes need to be done. And it was just so easy to find other things that need to get done. But when I actually sit down and spend that time the way I predetermined to use it, then I'm like, okay, great. Now what else do I want to do? And I don't have my day scheduled out to the minute. I am more of a rhythm kind of person, where like, okay, first I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do that. And these are about the time frames I want to accomplish these tasks in. There are some times when I'm like, okay, this hour is dedicated to this task. But because of the life I live with 5 kids, homeschooling, like I need to be flexible, and I can be flexible. And I have learned to under schedule. Like I only plan a few things for a time chunk because I know I'm going to get interrupted 100 times. So I just have planned less, I guess, for that time. But inevitably, I am able to get more done than I planned because I got the things done that I planned. So then I'm like, great. Now what else do I want to do?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It totally like makes rambled. Sense.
No, I love that, because I mean, the truth is what you're doing by following through is you eliminate the drag. I cannot emphasize enough, like how much having those like monkey on your back tasks weigh your energy down. If you're just like, oh, totally but I should do this other thing. What I want to do is just, do this other fun thing in the moment, right here, right now, instead of doing the thing that you planned. That plan that you have, whether it's going to the gym or getting the homeschool curriculum written or whatever it is that you have in your day, it's going to be the monkey in your back. And at the end of the day, you're just like, well, you did all that other stuff, but you didn't do that one thing that you said you're going to do, because that's the thing that's most important. And this is why it's so important for us to get crystal clear on what our priorities are. Because if you have your hand in 20 different pots and you're trying to work on these projects all simultaneously, you don't make progress on any of them. And it is so frustrating for us. So frustrating not to make progress on anything. And so we end up just wanting to talk ourselves out of it because we feel overwhelmed. We're like, oh, there's 20 things to do right now. Instead of just being laser focused and saying, okay, this is the project now until it's done. And then this is the next project now until it's done. And working in a methodical way, because it feels so much more liberating. It feels so much more energizing. It feels so much more relaxing to get things done in a way like that. And the other thing too is you end up with a lot more time and freedom in your life because you're knocking out that one thing. It feels amazing. And then you're like, hey kids, let's go play a game or let's go do something else. And because you legitimately have time and it feels fun instead of doing something that's fun, all the while you're thinking, I shouldn't be doing this right now. I should be working on my project, right?
Yeah, totally. I don't think I realized how much weight I was adding by not following through on what I said I was going to do. Like it weighed me down so much. And I don't think I realized it until I did start following through and felt so much lighter. And just that headspace. I don't know. I've got a lot of chatter going on in my brain a lot of the time. But with following through, it's not there because there's nothing for that voice to say because like I did it.
Yeah.
So,
right.
I used to say years ago, like if I can read my scriptures and work out, that's a good day. Like anything else that happens that day is like a cherry on top. But it's taken me years to be consistent at like reading my scriptures and exercising. And I have days, like I said, we participate in a homeschool community. So there's 2 days a week when we have to be out of the house early. And I'm not willing to wake up earlier to do those things before. I usually get my scripture study in, but not exercise. So I've just given myself permission, like it's okay to take those days off or to do something in the afternoon that's different than my normal routine. Yes. So I think that's been a huge piece too. I feel like I have been able to give myself a lot more kindness and compassion and grace, even in the times when I don't follow through, because I still don't follow through 100% of the time. I'm not perfect. I'm not a robot. I would say the more consistent I am at following through with myself, the more I want to, the more encouraged I am, the more like energized and excited I am to follow through on what I've committed to do to myself. But when I don't beat myself up like I used to. I'm way more kind. And that's a huge weight lifted as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Same. I don't even have that conversation with myself anymore. I used to be a very black and white, like all or nothing kind of person. And I had very high expectations of what I wanted to be doing during my day, exercising 6 days a week and those kinds of things. And I mean, you're right. None of us are perfect at doing it. And I think that's a beautiful example of kind of throwing that all or nothing mentality out the window and just being like, here we are. This is what we got. I'm not willing to wake up any earlier. And so we're just going to be kind to ourselves that this is a choice I'm intentionally making to not get my workout done this morning. And it's okay. It really is.
Yeah.
Because the other days that I hit it and I get it are amazing. I'm still taking care of myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought that up with all that. Okay, this has been an amazing conversation. If there's anything that you want to say to women who are struggling in the way that you were, or, your past self who was like really striving and trying to get these systems in place and doing the things that we've talked about today and making their lives more sustainable, what would you say to that person?
This analogy actually just popped into my head. I would say, first of all, keep trying. Don't give up, because I feel like if I can do it, anybody can do it. And I still have a ton of work to do, but I'm excited by that work. I don't feel weighed down by that work anymore, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But there is wisdom in taking time to stop, to pause, and to reflect. It's like if you are riding a bike to get somewhere and someone pulls over with a car and says, hey, why don't you hop in our car and we'll get you there even faster? And you're like, no, I can't stop. I can't stop riding. I've got to get to where I'm going. And they're like, well, if you just stop and get in the car, we'll get there faster. And you're like, no, I just have to keep pedaling. That to me is like what we do when we don't stop and pause and evaluate and like pick a priority and get in the car, so we can get there faster. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
Like you've got to just stop doing the things and evaluate. I can put a big pitch in for coaching with Janeen. I highly recommend coaching with Janeen.
Well, thanks. I didn't ask her to say that, but thanks.
No, I know. I would totally do that. That can be stopping. That can be your getting off the bike and getting in the car. Janeen will be driving the car, and she will help you get to where you need to go. The other thing I would say that has become so important to me is being honest with myself. And the feeling of integrity just feels so good to me right now that like I'm not willing to give it up for anything else, really. But that takes time. That has taken time to be really honest with myself. Like I'm not willing to get up before 6 a.m. That's me being finally honest with myself. And I am not going to jump out of bed at 6 a.m. I'm going to roll over and snuggle with my husband because that's what I want to do for half an hour or longer if I want, you know? So being honest with myself and that feeling of integrity, it's priceless. Like it really is. And I feel like that is my driving force for continuing the process of becoming who I want to become. It's not some end result. Like I feel like embracing the process rather than trying to get somewhere. I'm not trying to get somewhere anymore. I really am just trying to embrace where I am and where I'm going in this moment. Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. I'm so grateful that you said that, because it's interesting when you do that, when you're able to slow yourself down and simplify and create a life that is sustainable to you. It's amazing what starts to flow into your life because you've made room for it. And I know all of you out there are not sitting on the couch eating bonbons and watching Netflix all day. That's not what you're doing, right? That's not what I was doing before. It's not what Megan was doing before. But I think that analogy of just like spinning your wheels and continuing to pedal and like, no, I am like so focused on this and kind of white knuckling yourself to this destination is not a sustainable or happy way to live your life. And I think for all the women out there, I think you deserve better than that for sure.
Yeah. And I would say yes to you. Say yes to yourself. Signing up for coaching with you, Janeen, was a big yes to me. And I had said yes to myself before, but like it was different this time for some reason. Like that was a big yes. That was the beginning. And even before I started coaching with you, just having signed up, I started following through. I started saying yes to me in ways that I hadn't before.
Yeah. I remember that because I think when you signed up, we actually didn't have our first coaching session for like 2 weeks after.
Yeah.
And you're like texting me, you're like, I'm getting all this stuff done. It's amazing. Yeah. That transformational energy. It's so exciting when you ignite it and you do say yes to you in whatever way that looks like, whether it's coaching with me or coaching with another person or getting into a program or even reading a book. I mean, there's so many different ways that we can ignite this. And I just want you thinking about that. And if it's not working for you, I know sometimes I've picked up books hoping for an outcome that I'm like, this isn't doing it for me. Then just keep striving, keep trying, keep looking for answers for the things that you're struggling with. And I love what you said about being honest with yourself, because I think so often as mom, we're like, it's fine. And we just like brush it under the rug and kind of take the hit for that when it's not fine. When we need to admit that to ourselves, you need to have that honest conversation with yourself and put your foot down about the things that you need and how you can get that help for yourself so that you don't continue to struggle.
Yeah. And one thought I had earlier today when I was thinking about this conversation is that when we say yes to ourselves, it allows us to then say yes to so many other things, to other people in our lives, because then we have something to draw from. If we are not saying yes to us, then it makes saying yes to other people drag. Like then it's a withdrawal. But when we say yes to us first, then we're able to say yes to others in a way more joyful and energetic way.
Yeah, because we are making those deposits for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. And I love the example I'm showing my kids. Like I want them to make themselves a priority. I want them to make working on themselves a priority. So I have to do that first. I have to show them
yes
how to do that. So
yep. I believe that 100%, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Awesome. Megan, thank you so much for joining me today. It really has been such a treat to have you on, and for my listeners to hear your story and to learn from you and your experiences, and hopefully that they've created some shifts in their minds about some of the things that they're going to say yes to moving forward. So is there anything else that you want to say?
No, thank you. I hope it was helpful. And I just know that like I still have so much work to do. I've had these breakthroughs and I'm super grateful for them, and I will continue to build on them, but I'm in no way, shape, or form done. None of us are.
Yeah, right.
There's always more work
to
do, which once again, that's exciting to me. So
same.
I hope it's exciting for others too.
Yeah, same. Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. All right, you guys, have a beautiful rest of your week, and we'll catch you guys soon. We'll see ya. Bye.